Well, Neely, thank you for joining me. I've heard a lot about your life from other people who
Yeah.
have told me about your homesteading and your children and and of course all the things you're doing online. But I'd like to, can you just tell us about yourself in general?
Yeah, well, I am a mother, a wife and mother. I have five kids. The oldest is 20 and she is about to have her first baby in August, so I'm about to also be a grandmother, which is pretty exciting. So that's like the most important things about me. Besides that, about 4 years ago now, we moved from the city out into the country. So we have a little homestead. We have goats and chickens, and we just got ducklings, which is pretty fun. And we're trying to figure out the hobby farm life, which is hard because we are city kids. But it's been a lot of fun, and the kids have been enjoying it. I am also a YouTuber. I started YouTubing back in, I don't know, 2011 or something. It's been quite a long time and just a place where I share what's going on in my life, what I'm interested in, what I'm thinking about. And it's been just a really fun little outlet for me to kind of as a stay-at-home mom, sometimes we can just get shut out of a lot of social situations just because it's hard to be in social situations when you have a lot of loud children. And so just to have that little outlet where I could kind of, reach people and do it from the comfort of my own home was really fun. So I share all kinds of things like recipes and, what's going on in my wellness journey and stuff about the homestead farm and all kinds of things like that. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Now, are you self-sustaining?
Like the homestead?
Hmm.
No, no, not at this point. My husband is a contractor. He still works, a long work week, and so we don't have the time at this point to really put in the work that it would take to be self-sustaining. So right now we're just in the beginning stages of figuring it out and figuring out what we can handle. So we get eggs from our chickens, so that's great, and we're eventually want to do milk goats and maybe some meat goats. Right now, we just have basically lawnmower goats that keep the property nice, but we're taking little baby steps.
I do know. So, though listeners or viewers who don't know who you are yet, Neely's been extremely active on her YouTube channel in particular, sharing the story of her struggles with SIBO. Now, I know you've told this story already, but for the people who are unfamiliar with the story, I know you started engaging in the things that we do
Mhm.
after having tried a number of things. Any idea how you got such a bad case of SIBO?
I really don't know. It really, I mean, back in my probably mid 20s, and I'm, 41 now, so that was quite a long time ago. That's when I first started noticing a lot of what I now see as gut issues. At the time, I just thought they were skin issues, but that's where it kind of came first, and just different rashes and various things. And I didn't really know, what to make of it. I went on all kinds of different, like elimination diets and candida cleanses, trying all the different things. Not a lot really made a difference, and so I kind of just had this underlying gut issue that I didn't really know what exactly it was for many, many years. And it was after I had been on the carnivore diet for a while that the gut issues, where it was really gut centric or like digestion related, that's when that really cropped up when I wasn't able to tolerate all kinds of different foods anymore. And, I had to stick really close to just meat only. And that's when I kind of noticed that there was a problem. Like, I really need to get to the bottom of this. And I had heard about SIBO before. And so I was like, I think I just need to go ahead and get a breath test. And so I got the breath test. This was probably about 3 years ago now, I think. I went ahead and got the gut test or the breath test, and it came back very, very positive. And so I went down the road of what's kind of the alternative route that's most popular online, which is antimicrobials and the um what's the digestion, the thing that stimulates your digestion. I forgot the name of it.
Bitters?
That yeah, that would be one of them. Yeah. Anyways, I just went down that whole route of antimicrobials, and I remember I was sharing all of this on YouTube, and I remember at one point when I was sharing just, something, an update about how I was doing, I got a comment from somebody saying, I healed my SIBO just by eating Dr. Davis's yogurt. And I was like, I get a lot of crazy comments on YouTube, so it's hard to take things seriously. So when I first read that, I was like, okay, sure. You ate yogurt and you fixed your SIBO. Okay, there's this whole industry and all of these powerful antibiotics and antimicrobials and elemental diet supplements and all this stuff, and you're gonna tell me you just fixed it by eating yogurt? Okay. And so looking back on that now, I laugh and think, wow, sometimes those crazy YouTube comments really do have something to them. And so it was, a little bit after that where I started actually looking at the Super Gut book and kind of like, okay, well, maybe this isn't quite so crazy. That was probably like 3 months into my antimicrobial rounds that I was doing. And doing those antimicrobial rounds really, it was a rough time for my gut because I was doing the antimicrobials, but I was also doing what was recommended, which is eating lots of fiber and carbs to keep the SIBO alive and not make it go dormant. And so the antimicrobials, on top of eating all of these things that my body really did not tolerate well, my gut was in a really rough place. And so, I just like, I saw the yogurt and I was like, all right, I'm going to add this too. And I probably did it all in the wrong order. And there probably could have been a way better way to do it if I, really planned it out better. But I was like, I'm just going to add in the yogurt. And so I went ahead and did everything that you recommended in the book. And I ordered the supplements and I made the yogurt. And I'd say within 48 hours, it was like my gut reset. And it was like all of a sudden I I like to say I didn't feel my digestive system. It was like it was just humming along like I didn't even notice it, like you're supposed to. And that was the first time I was like, okay, there's something to this. And I still had to work through some stuff. It wasn't just smooth sailing from that moment forward, but it really was a big key in getting my symptoms under control. So,
So there was nothing like I took antibiotics for 4 years for acne, or I took Prilosec for 7 years for acid reflux, or something you could put your finger on that led you down here.
I definitely had antibiotics through my childhood, like most people my age, growing up in the 80s and 90s, antibiotics for everything. So I definitely had my share of that. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was the ultimate root cause. I also did a lot of travel in my younger years to Africa and different places. And so maybe something like food poisoning. I've always had a very strong gut as far as it goes with food poisoning. So I don't have a specific time that I can remember where I was very sick, but maybe there was something that my body, couldn't handle. So I never really got to that exact root cause. But thankfully, after I've healed my SIBO or eradicated my SIBO, um, it hasn't reoccurred. So I feel like whatever it was, I'm not still doing that thing, or else I think the SIBO probably would reoccur. That's just my feeling on it.
Did you find that you were on your own, or did you have the assistance, some sort of assistance from my colleagues?
Um, I did it on my own. I did have help from my own doctor, although she's not a SIBO expert, but she was very supportive. I kind of brought to her like, this is what I want to do. Does this sound okay? And she's like, yeah, that sounds great. And so I didn't have a lot of really direct coaching or anything, but I did have, kind of some people looking over my shoulder.
That's kind of what I expected, to be honest. It's not to shame you into saying that. No, I did it all by myself. But because I find this is true of the majority of people, that my colleagues say, "Oh, you're consulting Dr. Google again, are you?"
Yes.
Or "That's stupid." Or "No, we have antibiotics for that." Or "There's no such thing as SIBO." I mean, all the ridiculous answers my colleagues seem like they went to school to learn, right? They're
Hmm.
very good at belittling their patients. Thankfully, yours did not, just kind of
Yeah, she's
by benign
fantastic.
support. But your story is what I hear a lot of. People do it on their, and by the way, that was my original motivation writing the Undoctored book
Mm.
some years back. I saw that you didn't need the doctor. In fact, the doctor got in your way most of the time, and that doing it on your own, you had to zigzag. Yeah, no question. You had to figure it out, as I have too, as all of us have had to do. But you zigzag, and particularly in a community where you're getting the feedback, like your commenter. He said,
Yes.
"Oh, I
Yep.
never thought about that. Sounds kind of stupid, but I'll try it anyway."
Yeah.
How's it gone with your family?
As far as like gut health or
Do you find your kids say, "Oh, that's dumb, Mom. We're not going to do that," or "We'll try
oh,
it"?
well, they're used to me doing all kinds of healthy things in the house throughout their entire life. So it's completely normal for me to, have some new food that I'm excited about or experiment with different kinds of recipes and things. So for them, it was kind of par for the course. I haven't gotten them to eat the yogurt on a regular basis. That's one thing that I is one of my goals. And I've got to figure out a way. For some reason, they don't like just the plain yogurt. Um, I need to figure out a way, like make a smoothie every once in a while with it or something like that to get them, kind of trick them into eating it without without thinking about it. But yeah, they're used to their crazy mom doing all kinds of health stuff.
Will they consider eating conventional yogurt?
They'll eat that if it's sweetened and, they love that.
One trick I came up with, and this came up because one of the few people who shouldn't do this, make the rotisserie yogurt, are ladies who are currently pregnant.
Right,
We just don't know. No, everyone's terrified of testing anybody who's pregnant because the risk is damaging the child.
right.
So we know that rotaryi, of course, provokes oxytocin. And oxytocin provokes uterine contraction. That's why if your daughter said, "Mom, I want to deliver on Wednesday, August 23rd at 8 a.m." She goes into the hospital. They put an IV in. They give her an intravenous infusion of oxytocin,
Right.
pitocin, I might say, the brand name.
Yep.
So we know with incontrovertible evidence that oxytocin provokes uterine contraction. Well, does that happen? So everybody should have rotaryi. Pregnant women, children, babies, everybody should have it. But should you get these super duper high counts? That we don't know. Probably not. So one of the things I suggested to ladies who still want to have this microbe restored, because it plays a crucial role in reproductive health. So what do we do if we can't get the super duper high numbers of the rotaryi yogurt as we make it with prolonged fermentation? Yet all humans are supposed to have it. Why just how about let's think about this. If Neely has I know talking about gardens to you is silly because you got a farm, but let's pretend you had a 10 by 10 garden and you plant tomatoes in springtime. Well, at the end of the growing season, you'll have tons of tomatoes. What if another year you grow tomatoes and zucchini and squash and watermelon? And how many tomatoes will you have? Far fewer. So we can take that same principle. You likely know this, and cultivate the rotaryi, yes, with other microbes. And an easy, cheap, easy way is to buy a commercial yogurt it'll list the microbe. If it doesn't list the microbes, don't buy it. But if it
Hmm.
does, Lactobacillus bulgaricus, Lactobacillus acidophilus, Streptococcus thermophilus, maybe Lactococcus lactis, and then take some of that and ferment it with the rotaryi.
Okay.
And especially if there's a brand nearly called OUI, the
Oh, okay.
French,
Yes.
yes. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's like $1.
Hmm.
And it's got the two most standard yogurt microbes, Lactobacillus bulgaricus and Streptococcus thermophilus. So for $1, ferment that with the rotaryi, maybe use 24 hours, not 36 hours.
Okay.
You
Okay.
get lower numbers. And you know what? It's delicious.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that sourness that we get with the way we make reuteri, because we do the prolonged fermentation because we want to jack up those numbers really super duper high. So you get better skin and muscle and all the things we get, and increase the odds of getting rid of your SIBO. But when you want to feed it to your children, they object to that sourness.
Yeah.
That's a way to soften the blow. So just a
Okay,
thought.
that's a good idea. Thank you. Yeah, we'll try that.
So, as you well know, your audience talks to you. The experience varies from person to person. Most people
Yeah.
do get a lot of positive effects, but some don't have perceived effects. They may have unperceived effects. Have you had anything like deeper sleep or strength or anything else happen to you?
Well, I definitely my skin improved quite a bit, and it's so hard to like piece out where exactly certain benefits come from because I was healing my gut, and so was it well, it's all related. So definitely skin health. It has helped my sleep. My sleep has been pretty good for a while, so it's kind of hard to say, but I do have the feeling that it has helped my sleep for sure. Um, so one experience that I have had is when I was making the yogurt to heal my SIBO, I was using the BioGaia um, supplement, like you recommended back then. That was before the My reuteri came out. And I credit it for, as a big part of healing my gut and eradicating my SIBO or getting back into balance. But I didn't notice the oxytocin effects from it. And I don't know if that was because my gut was just in such a rough place that I couldn't, I couldn't hear that through the noise. I don't know if it was because whatever strains they have um, maybe weren't quite the same ones that I needed exactly for those effects. But
I often say that if I was 25 again, researching oxytocin and reuteri would be an entire
Mhm.
career. There's so much to know. We do know a lot. There's a lot we don't know.
Mm,
Why, as you point, why does the experience vary?
yeah,
As you point out, the microbiome context from one person to another can be very different. One person starts with SIBO, another one doesn't. Maybe your SIBO is dominated by E. coli and Klebsiella. Another person's SIBO is dominated by Staphylococcus and Streptococcus. They're completely different things. Maybe there's variation, the oxytocin receptor variant, something we haven't talked about because there's not a whole lot we can do about it. You can't change your oxytocin receptor variant. What if we find? So, what I'm hoping with all our research efforts that at some point we say, aha, we found out that rotary only works in the presence of, I'm making this up, two or
Mm,
three other microbes. And if
right.
you don't have those other two, you're not going to get the same effect. There's all these collaborative effects. So there's so much nearly we don't yet know. We're going to try to figure it out. As you know, we're not pharma. We don't rip people off for billions of dollars.
Right. Be
So we
handy
have
to have
to
all those billions of dollars, though.
so we have to kind of chug along and do our research and try to piece things together.
Yeah.
But how about any changes in mood or your perception of other people?
Oh yeah, for sure. I noticed a big improvement in mood specifically since December when I started taking the Gut to Glow. And it's kind of like I felt like it's helped me deal with stress better. I w it was just a funny thing that I noticed when I was exercising, when I was working out and doing some really intense interval of, cardio or whatever. Usually I'm just like, staring at the clock or like, oh, I got to get through this. I found that I was doing the work, but my mind was able to kind of wander. It's like my mind wasn't preoccupied with the stress, even though my body was still doing it. That was really interesting. I just kind of have noticed that like little bit of a stress reduction, especially in like mental stress. So that was a big one. And also, I've always been kind of an introvert, which is kind of funny for a YouTuber because you'd think you must be an extrovert, but the reality is I can make all of my videos alone in my house by myself. So it works out pretty well. But I've always been an introvert, but I have found that, when I'm in the grocery store or other places, it's easier for me just to strike up conversations with people. It's just a little thing, but I definitely did notice that improving.
I do ask that you focus on the skin only because the ladies all tell me, that was the rationale for our first human clinical trial. Ladies would say, not you, but a lot of other ladies would say things like, you know what, we don't really care too much about a restoration of youthful muscle and not too much about skin rashes. We don't really care too much about libido and increased empathy. And I would say, what? Really? We just want better skin.
Yeah,
And
I'm a strange one when it comes to that. The skin is secondary.
but I saw it nearly as a point of entry, of a way to engage the females if they're not enticed by mood or reduction in anxiety or, let's say, reduction in bloating. Some are, of course, but most of them are motivated by better skin, which surprised me. And of course, that's what we're seeing play out, better skin.
Yeah, totally.
Lily, thank you very much for sharing your story. I know it's not always comfortable to share personal details of your health and life, but you
Yeah,
do
glad
look
to do it.
fantastic. Your skin looks fabulous. If you had said to me, "I'm a 31-year-old mother and a wife, and I have no children," I would have said, "Oh, sure you do. Yeah, sure you are."
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Lily. Thanks for taking the time. Keep up the
Yeah,
great
thanks so
work.
much for having me.